It's time for another video podcast here on SNSN Radio, and today a little bit different. We don't have law enforcement or legislator or anything like that on with us today, but we do have somebody much more important, a resident who actually can tell us firsthand about COVID-19. Hello, Jill. How are you?
Hi, Mike. I'm good.
So the first question that I want to ask you, and I ask the same question to everybody, regardless of who you are, when we do a podcast. The first question is did Carol Baskin do it?
Without a doubt. Without a doubt.
That's it. Is he under the septic tank, or did the Tigers?
I think she fed him to the Tigers.
Fed him to the Tigers. Okay. Have you seen the whole thing?
Oh yeah. I watched it one night.
Did you really?
Yeah.
Are you binging? Like, another thing right now is they're talking about like what people are binge watching on Netflix or Hulu or Amazon, or are you binging anything right now?
Like TV is like nothing seems appealing to me lately. Like I think I'm so bored that I'm like I'm just over it. I'm over it.
So you're like a TikTok video right now. You're bored in the house and you're in the house bored.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. So enough of that stuff. Let's get right into what happened with you and what happened with your boyfriend Garrett.
Okay.
So why don't you tell us right out when you started getting symptoms? What were you thinking? How did it start?
So for the both of us, it started on the same day. It was Monday, I believe, around like March 31st, in and around there. I had worked that day, and I started with this hacky dry cough. And as I was driving home from work, I started getting achy. And I was on the phone with my mother, and I said, I think I might have COVID. I'm like, if I have a fever when I get home, I have COVID. Mm-hmm. And Garrett was leaving for work as I was getting home. And I said to him, I don't know if you should go to work today, because I think I might have COVID. And he's like, And he had started coughing that same day. He got to work and they sent him right home. He works as a respiratory therapist at Windham Hospital. So
if anybody's going to know the symptoms, really, that's right. Exactly what he does. Yeah.
Yep. So I came in, checked my temp. I had a temp, and I was like, oh, no. And he came home shortly thereafter because I sent him right home. So that night, it hit us like a ton of bricks, like the both of us. High fevers, aches, the cough would not stop, short of breath. So we called our primary care doctor. We both go to the same group, and they gave us a phone number to call to get tested. They initially did not want to test either of us.
Now, why? Did they give you a reason why?
Well, they were like, oh, just assume you have it and self-treat at home. And, Garrett is a diabetic. He also has psoriatic arthritis. So the medication they give him for that is an immunosuppressant. And even with that, they didn't want to test him. And he finally had to say, like, I can't go back to work until I'm tested.
Right.
So he was tested that Tuesday. And by that Wednesday, I was so sick, I couldn't take it anymore. And went to the Bacchus ER in Plainfield, which is where they did the swab on me. And while I was there, his results came back positive. So they were like, well, you're probably going to be positive too. And because I'm asthmatic, they wanted me to be admitted because with asthmatics, they can decompensate so quickly. You can feel fine, and then all of a sudden, because it's respiratory.
So now with the inability to get a test, like especially for Garrett, I mean, how frustrating was that for him?
It was so frustrating because it's like, here is a frontline worker caring for COVID patients who is very ill, with a fever, cough, short of breath, like every textbook symptom, and they're telling him no. It just blew our minds.
Now, so you both got tested.
Mm-hmm.
Both came out. Now, how long were you actually out of commission or out of work, or really? I
A
mean,
month.
1 full month, huh?
Yep, 4 weeks to the day I went back to work.
Got it.
But I would say it was like 3 weeks of being like down and out.
Now, did you have to get retested to be able to
No,
go
because
back to work?
so when they discharged me from the hospital, the infectious disease, none of the doctors really came to see me. Everything was done on the phone. So the infectious disease doctor called me and he said, the CDC recommends 2 negative tests. But because there's such a shortage in Connecticut, he's like, you're not going to get a retest.
Mm-hmm.
And he said they would probably come up positive anyway because of the antibodies. They don't know how long I would be positive for, but they basically said quarantine. If you go 72 hours, no fever, without Tylenol, then you can assume you're safe. So that took a while to get because I couldn't shake my fever.
Now, once you got out of the hospital, then actually Garrett went in.
He did. It was about a week in between.
And did you guys have the same symptoms, or did you
So
vary?
it's kind of funny because like the ache, which I personally think was the worst part, the ache was like nothing I've ever had in my life. If someone touched me, like my skin felt like it was on fire. I hurt so bad.
I've heard it kind of almost akin to like a bone breaking.
Oh, well, I don't know if you remember, like I broke my hip a couple of years ago. It felt like my hip was rebroken. It hurt so bad. Even my tattoos bubbled up and itched and burned. It
Really?
was very strange. A total inflammatory response, I'm sure. So we had pretty much the same symptoms. I had the shortness of breath, which could be because I'm asthmatic.
Mm-hmm.
He had nausea and vomiting really bad, which is why they admitted him for fluids because he couldn't keep anything down. Oh, severely.
So now you both get it on the same day.
Yeah.
You go into the hospital first. You come out. He goes in.
Yep.
He comes out. So now there's probably about 3 to 4 weeks going on in between there, start to finish, and you have kids in the house.
Yes.
So how were the kids affected, if at all?
So I would say about 4 or 5 days into it, my 19-year-old came out of her room and she was like, Mom, everything hurts. I think I have a fever. She had a high fever. I'm like, oh, but she was only sick for 2 days. And then it was like nothing for her. My 8-year-old who loves to cuddle and be on mommy all the time, I had to stay away from her, which was awful. She luckily never had anything. No symptoms, no cough, nothing. So we're super grateful for that.
So now, obviously, you look great. Looks like everything has kind of run its course with you.
Yeah.
And you are back to work?
I am. Yeah, I went back on Monday.
And Garrett is as well?
Yes. Yeah, he went back the Friday before me. So last week we were both employed people again.
So what kind of message would you send out to anybody that maybe is just starting to get sick and starting to feel the symptoms, or somebody that's afraid of actually getting them? Because in the media, there is a lot of fear that's perpetuated as far as the numbers are concerned. One of the things that they're not showing for the most part is how many people are actually
better.
getting better. Yeah. recovering.
which is far more. Those numbers
Right.
are significantly higher. We also have to remember that even though there's those rare cases where, you hear they were 30 years old and in pristine health and
Right.
they were vented and died, those are rare stories. The majority of the people that are dying from this are elderly and older and
Right.
immunocompromised. And, you know, I had a lot of encouragement from everybody. I had so much support, so many people that sent me prayers and well wishes, and friends that cooked for my kids because I couldn't move. And I had so much support. And I think there's so much more good in everything that's going on right now. Like, it's easy to focus on the bad and focus on, oh,
Right.
we've got 1,700 deaths. But there's so much good, and there's so many people supporting other people. And people generally do recover from this. Some people get it worse than others. Like Gabby had it 2 days and we were
Yep.
sick for 3 weeks. There's no way to tell how it's going to affect you. I obviously had a lot of people message me and ask me, what do you think I should do? My biggest advice to anyone is, if you can't breathe, go to the ER. Otherwise, there's really not much they can do for you. I was in the hospital. I was there to be monitored, but there's like no medication. There's not really a treatment. So they gave me zinc. They gave me fluids, and they watched my oxygen saturation, because it's kind of all they can do.
Right.
I honestly couldn't wait to get out of the hospital. I was in an isolation room. It was a negative pressure room. So all you could hear all night was like the sucking in and out. The door for the hospital room was very heavy because it's an isolation room.
Right.
So I couldn't hear if someone was coming in, and the door would like just slam open out of nowhere. And I jumped like every time because I didn't know someone was coming in the room. Honestly, all I wanted to do was sleep and rest. So I did have a touch of bronchitis. So they also gave me antibiotics for that. And just the fluids, and that's really all they could do for me. So unless you need that respiratory support, you're better off at home.
Yeah, because I mean, one of the main things about going to the hospital that people I know really enjoy is the food. So the food I hear, is delicious there.
Yeah. Well, I didn't have much of an appetite, so it was very hard for me to eat anyway.
Yeah.
But then you throw hospital food on top of that, and it
That
wasn't
really
happening.
makes you not want to eat. So I
It
put
really
up
makes you not want to eat.
I put up a graphic on the screen. Can you see it?
Yeah, I can. Let me see if I can
And
zoom
this
in.
is actually of 2 days ago. And the reason why I picked this one is because yesterday's graph doesn't show what I wanted to show in this. And one of the things that you were talking about that you had mentioned and that I have seen is that this number right here. This is the over 80 group right here, and this represents 56% of COVID-19 deaths right here. And then if you take these two numbers right here,
Yep.
the 70 to
And
79,
then the 3.
so 70 and up, that's
Yep.
almost 80%
Yeah.
of all of the deaths. And you can see how they rapidly drop
Yep.
off. So this is really speaking to your point of people do get better. I don't think there's enough talk about that. And this is one of the reasons why I wanted you to come on today, is because you ran the course and unfortunately had it, but you're back to work and everything is
Yeah.
and then hopefully with further research, you'll be able to even maybe provide some antibodies as well.
Yep. So we started the preliminary steps to donate plasma. We have to go in for like a further assessment, and they'll have to do the antibody test on us first, obviously. But if our plasma can help someone out, that would be great. I believe they're reserving the plasma treatments for the very sick. ventilated patients.
Got it. Is there anything else you want to add onto this that we haven't spoken to? Like I said, the main message here was many more people get COVID-19 and survive, many more than actually run into complications and have it being an end-life event. So,
and we also don't even really know the real numbers because of the shortage of tests in our state.
Right.
They're finally starting to get more tests, which is why we're seeing the numbers. You know, I think they said something like, you know, there was 768 new cases. Well, that's because we have tests now.
Right.
That we didn't have before. So we may never know. We will never know the real numbers.
I think the two most, I don't think the amount of positive tests means anything, because that's only relative to the amount of tests that were taken.
Absolutely.
The only thing I think you can do with that number is to take the number and find out the percentage of people that are testing that are positive, and it's right between 32 and 33%.
Right.
You can figure pretty much 1 in 3
yeah.
are going to get it, and that number has pretty much stayed steady through the entire time. You know, and as far as another big number that people aren't paying, or they're just starting to, is the amount of hospitalizations. If you go back to the beginning of April, there were more people going in the hospital and then less deaths. And what happened through the month is that number started to even out, and now there are more deaths and less hospitalizations.
Yeah.
Hospitalization. And you're a nurse, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so really the amount of hospitalizations from day to day is probably one of the more important numbers that people need to really look at.
It is, because it speaks to the acuity of patients. Like I said, there isn't a lot they can do for COVID patients, unless you have a severe respiratory depression and need to be, ventilated. But if you're like me, and they're just kind of watching your oxygen saturation and giving you fluids. I mean, when I got home, I checked my own O2 sats every hour, and, it's kind of all you can do.
Right.
So they call it supportive care.
Got it. Jill, thanks a lot for
Thank you so much.
Taking this impromptu time.
Of course.
And, taking a message from me and go, hey, how about now?
Yeah.
So I'm glad you're doing well.
Thank you so much.
Also the Garrett as well. And we hope later on this summer, you and Garrett will be on our back deck once again.
Of course.
And of course, being the weak stick that I am, I'll be the one to go to bed first.
Garrett may too, because, he works thirds, so he sleeps all the time.
Tell him to take a nap. I'm challenging him.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Jill.
Thank you, Mike. Have a good day.
You too.
All right. Bye.
Very good.
Thanks.